Welcome to another episode of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast, special edition, Juneteenth edition. And I am super excited to bring to the front my friend Sherry. We go way back over a decade where
Yeah.
we met in church, no
hmm
less. But life has taken us in completely different directions since then. And I'm super excited to welcome her to the podcast because she has one heck of a story. She is a mom. She is a businesswoman. She's been doing major things. She's overcome some pretty high hurdles, but has done it with stride. And I'm super welcome. I'm excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for even thinking of me.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your story. I know you said you were raised in Inglewood and Chicago. Where were you born?
hmm
You were born
I was
where?
born in Inglewood, right at Martin
Okay.
Luther King Jr. Hospital, so right in the middle of it. So
Yeah.
born and raised really in California, but my dad moved to Chicago when I was 3 to take care of an aging aunt, and he just stayed there. So him and my mom separated, and so since I was in elementary school, I've been going back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. If you had
Yeah.
to choose one, which one would you prefer?
You know, I love my dad and I love the people out in Chicago. If I can put the people in Chicago in the California weather, then it'd be the best of both worlds. But I told my dad, I'll see you in spring going into summertime and fall before winter starts. I cannot do those winters. If I have to choose, I'm not ever doing it again.
Understandable. Yep. I've been in Chicago when it was like -6.
Yeah. It's
And it's
like,
brutal.
why would you choose that?
Yeah. So tell the folks a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I am, I guess, an insurance and wellness coach, right? It's kind of evolved over the years. I was supposed to be a corporate girly in following in the footsteps of my mentor in banking and finance. But life had other things in mind for me when I was diagnosed with lupus at 26. I had a decision to make as far as my health and what was stressing me out and what was causing more issues than not normally. When we're stressed out or overwhelmed, we just think, oh, we're just too busy, and that's just the way life is supposed to be. But it literally sat me down. So since then, just that transitioned me into the insurance industry, and I got licensed not to sell insurance, but to understand it. Because now, being a lupus patient, I had 3 different doctors that I could hardly pronounce: a nephrologist, a hematologist, a rheumatologist, and I had to see them on a normal basis. And I kept getting bills in the mail, and I wasn't understanding that. In my 20s, I thought working for a big bank, I had full coverage insurance, and that wasn't it. And so I got licensed to understand a system that nobody knew, and it's still scary and it's still secretive. The surprise billing that continues to happen. And so I made it my business to share with people what insurance was, how it actually works, and what you're going to be covered for in the event that something really happens to you, rather it's catastrophic, an accident, or, God forbid, someone passes away. And so the last 11 years, that's what I've been doing. And in the meantime, that also led me down a path of finances and healing your body from within. Your body wants to heal. You just have to give it the right things. And it took me a while to understand that. And I did it on accident, trying to clean out my own body because I didn't want to take those medications that they said I were going to have to take for life. And then, health and finances to me go hand in hand. Most people are financially stressed. That shows in their health. And if we don't take care of that, then we end up bankruptcy, bad credit, all the things. It's like how you do one thing is how you do everything else. And so I really kind of take now helping some of the people that I've helped. It's really like a holistic approach to me. Health and wellness just go together.
Yes. So you said you were able to overcome lupus. And
Mhm.
can you tell us what you were able to do in order to defeat that? Because, like you
Yeah.
said, the doctors told you you're going to have to take this medicine for the rest of your life.
hmm
How
Yeah.
did
I
you overcome
chose
it?
a different way. So my nymphologist, the first thing he told me was, you're going to need to take Plaquenil, hydroxychloroquine. Those were the two things that he said I was going to have to take. And I said, well, how long? And he said, forever. I said, well, what are the side effects? And he said, well, he started just listing them off. And then I said, well, wait a minute, but what if I want kids? And he said, well, I wouldn't recommend that because it's going to make your kidneys worse and you're going to end up on dialysis. And he was speaking facts from what he understood, because he did have a patient who was pregnant and ended up on dialysis currently in that situation as he was telling me this. And I just decided, I said, you know what? I appreciate your medical expertise and advice, but I want to try something different. And I told him, I said, give me 3 months, give me a quarter to figure it out. And I literally just reset my system by, I, fasted and prayed, right? That was the first thing. And I think through that fasting, I actually started feeling better and decided, okay, well, let me look up, lupus and health and all the things. And so a lot of people were giving me inflammation diets and food that you should eat and shouldn't eat. And so I came across a study where it was a raw food diet, right? Eat the foods that were given to us by the earth. So that's what I did for actually the next 6 months. And so I saw him in those 3 months and my numbers drastically decreased. And I said, well, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. And if you feel like you need to give me that prescription paper just to make yourself feel better, go ahead. I'll take it. But I never filled it. And I just kept going that way. And then once I got pregnant, my baby girl came. And after that, my baby boy came. And after that, and the miracle in all of that is when I was pregnant, I went into remission. There was no inflammation anywhere throughout my pregnancies with either of my babies. And I can't say that will happen for everyone. And my daughter, she got me out of my raw food diet because she wanted beef. So I had burgers while I was pregnant with her. And I wasn't perfect throughout this thing by any means, but I made it a point to put my health first. I quit my stressful job, right? And so that then financial stress came in. And at the time I was married, so he was still there financially for all of us. But, 2-income household was better than a 1-income household living in California. But I just decided to take my health into my hands because we know that physicians practice medicine and they don't always get it right. And you are your best advocate. So I took that to heart, and I did what I could. And I fed my body what it wanted and none of what it didn't want.
Wow. I was going to ask you if you're still raw vegan. It's tough, but I think that once you get in the practice of it, you become accustomed to it.
You do become accustomed of it. And sometimes I actually can go days without eating meat and not really notice it. But then I'm like, oh, wait, no, I need protein. I need some protein. So I do make sure that like in the morning, I'm not hungry. But I do make sure, okay, I need to make sure I have protein shake or some kind of yogurt, and I put a protein thing in there. If I know it's a day where I'm probably not going to eat that much, then I know I need to replace my protein in a different way.
So then after that period of like 6 months and your body really healing itself, did your doctor go ahead and accept defeat or what?
He did. He stopped asking me to take any kind of medication until COVID came. And then once COVID came again, he said, well, at least can you take the hydroxychloroquine? Because at that time, everything was fluctuating a little bit as far as my numbers. But it was nothing that rose to the occasion that I felt like, okay, I need to take some medication. It was, okay, Sherry, you need to get back on making sure that you're eating well. Because when I ate well, everything ran properly. Then when I wanted to, have some dairy or some fried chicken, everything in moderation, yes. But once I got back on what I knew I should have done to heal my body, everything was fine. And I still to this day have not taken any Plaquenil, have not taken any hydroxychloroquine or anything. And a lot of times, some of the women that I've spoken to that have been diagnosed, it's so hard to make that switch. And it's not until you're laying in the hospital bed when you have to make that change, or you have to make a decision. Am I going to choose me, or am I going to let the medication fix a symptom, or am I going to heal?
That's it. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter and I've been talking a lot about that because she was having some headaches and she went to the doctor and she's pregnant. I'm at the
Yeah.
hospital right now with her. She's hopefully have this baby today. But she, the doctors they were not running any tests. They were like, "We'll just take this Tylenol." I was like,
Yeah.
I said, they didn't test urine? She was like, they took some urine, but it's sitting on the counter. I was like, they're not going to test it? They're not going to test the
Mhm.
blood? Like, what are they doing? Let's
Yeah.
get to the source of why the headache started, not just,
Mhm.
we're not going to just cut the line that shows you the check engine light. Like, we don't cut the line. We figure out what's wrong with it. So that's a challenge.
Mhm.
How old are your babies now?
They are 9 and 11 now.
That's crazy.
I can't believe it. I can't. I mean, they're so much fun. Malia still, what is she doing? Competition dance team. And Joseph is now running track and loves it. But yeah, as long as they love doing it, then we gonna stay outside. I'm busy all day, every day.
Hmm. Yeah. You're going to have some teenagers soon. That is so crazy to me.
I'm
'Cause-
still the baby of the family, so I
Yeah.
don't know how the baby has babies.
Hmm.
That
Big
part,
kids.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now what do you think that some strategies you may have learned from your parents
Mhm.
on parenting that you use today, and maybe some things that you said, what, they did it this way, but I'm doing it differently.
Yeah. So one of the things that stands out to me is my mom. So she was single mom, and so it was me and my sister for most part of like the day after school. And so she's like my sister mom. She's also 12 years older than me. I came later in life from my mom. But the one thing that she did that I do differently now is like with my kids, I'm very intentional about money, because being raised in a household, I saw my mom not necessarily struggle, but she was at work every day. She had 1 to 2 jobs. Sometimes I had to go to her job after work, or after school. And she wasn't necessarily the best with money. And that showed later in life when I was older and I really understood that. But my kids know, okay, here's our money. Here's how you save. Here's how we invest. Like, they see their own Roth accounts. They see what we're investing in and why. And I'm like, okay, you want to buy that squishy? Okay, let's buy some stock in that squishy. Like, what's the name of the company? Let's research it. And so they're learning these things at a young age, because in the event that, I leave them my home, or God forbid I pass away and they have some income in our trust, I want them to know what to do with it. I want them to know how to steward it so that it doesn't just get spent and you don't know where your money is. And I tell them all the time, your money has a job and you need to make sure you know what it is.
That's so good. That is so good. And I didn't have that type of instruction. Like, my grandma told me how to manage a checkbook,
Yeah.
but which is a step, but
Yeah.
it wasn't, let's invest in these companies.
Hmm.
That is so important for little kids to understand, because it's going to shape how they see the world.
Yes.
Is when they get grown and they have their own money coming in, they will understand how to manage their money.
Right.
But you're setting them up for success, and I love to see it, because
Yeah.
little Black kids don't often get that.
They don't. And that's what made me so upset. And that's one of the reasons why the Wealth Studio like even exists. And I'm trying to get it out there now, because we, growing up in the inner city, we're not taught, hey, you pay yourself first and then your bills come. And then when you pay yourself first, like, and if you do get a windfall of money, it doesn't just go into a savings account so it can sit there. Make your money work for you, make it grow. Every penny that you earn should have a job. And if it doesn't, you're going to end up, spending that money and then look at your bank account and be like, wait, where'd that money go?
Hmm.
You should never have that thought, but so often a lot of us do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that you have overcome some very strong things that you sent me in your bio, like abuse and divorce. And
Mhm.
tell me more about that and how you've been able to overcome those situations.
Yeah. So in my relationship, one of my non-negotiables going into our marriage was I didn't grow up in a contentious home. Again, it was my mom, my sister, and me. We loved on each other. If there was any issues, we talked about it. I never grew up with yelling and fighting or anything like that. And so in premarital counseling, if there was a deal breaker and our pastor asked us, I said, that's my deal breaker. That will shut me down, that will shut me up, and I will retreat. And that's no way to really, one, be in a home together, right? There's no way that we can grow um, or build anything that way. And unfortunately, that did not happen. So there was a lot of verbal abuse. There was a lot of that eventually escalated. And I stayed, I prayed, tried counseling. But then at the end of it, by the time I grieved my marriage to leave, I had already had made the decision before I actually left. Because a lot of people, they think, oh, you're now announcing that you're getting divorced, but yeah, you might just find out. But I've known for a year and tried to prepare myself emotionally that this was not going to be long term. So we were married for almost 10 years, but I had
Wow.
to make a decision, one for my health and two for my babies, because the last thing that I'm going to allow anyone to do is show my kids this is not how you treat a woman, or show my son this is how you treat women, right? Or for my daughter to grow up thinking that this is how you allow a man to treat you. You will
Yeah.
not be yelled at, you will not be called names,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't want them to continue to see me in a posture of allowing this to happen, right? I didn't want that resentment either of, mom, you should have left 10 years ago. Why did you stay? So many women stay because of the lack of resources. One, they don't
Mhm.
have the support, they don't have income because they're a stay-at-home mom. And I love my stay-at-home moms. But when it's that time and you've been abused or you've been taken advantage of and you need to leave, a lot of us can't. And so I didn't want my kids to think that I was in that position. And so um, I was. So I had to plan ahead to say, okay, no, I need to make sure that I have a job that can sustain me and the kids in the event that something happens.
Yeah. How have you seen your kids handling it?
It was rough at first because there was a point in time where they couldn't see him because of everything that had happened. And that was rough, but it was necessary. It gone were the times where I can say, you need to leave the house so that you can cool down. When someone says, I'm not leaving, and they continue on, you have to take yourself and your kids out of that situation. So that's what I did. So that period of time was hard, but they also understood because they were there when it happened. And over time, now it's been a little over 3 years, almost four. They understand why mommy left. They understand what happened, and they are now, they're both of them are straight A students. They're thriving. They are continuing in all of their extracurricular activities, and they're also in counseling because leaving a marriage was not my first thought. It was the last. And I often tell people it was the worst, best decision that I had to make. Like, no one goes into a marriage thinking, oh, this is going to end after 10 years with kids. The idea that I had in my head was I wanted to break that cycle of divorce in my family.
Hmm.
But now I have to set up and prayerfully raise my kids to not do what I did. And really, it's just about choosing wisely. Kalisha, I can tell you this. I know we're live, but I knew before I married him, I shouldn't have married him.
What?
I did it anyway because, and I say this because I'm hoping it can help someone else in this situation. You're in a relationship, your friend groups are all in a relationship, they're all getting engaged, they're all getting married, yet you know in the back of your mind, this isn't it. stop, take the ring off, hold everything. And I didn't do that, and I should have.
You know, that's a lot. This is a lot because, when people get so far down a road, they feel like they just have to keep going down that road.
Exactly.
And because everybody else's expectations, everybody else expecting
Mhm.
them to go down that road,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing that changes everything.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but you making the decision to leave even when it was hard,
Mhm.
that speaks so much to your kids.
Yeah.
I know that they were, man, they were little when it was
Mhm.
happening,
Mhm.
but even now they understand, like, I don't have to stay stuck in a bad situation. I have a
No.
choice. And even if it's hard, I still have a choice and I can make that choice.
Exactly. And that is the main reason why I finally made the decision to leave. Because I knew years ago I need to leave. But I stayed because at first I said, I'm going to stay because of the kids. And then my health started getting worse. And then I said, okay, no, I have to leave. And then an event happened. I was grabbed and I said, oh, so there was no tears involved in my decision at that point. And once we left, I said, I'm making a choice to end this now, not only for my kid's safety and my safety, but also his. Don't forget where I grew up. So I had to make sure that I was not put in a position where I was going to come out of my character and then be wrong as well. So I
Yeah.
needed to take myself out of the picture as well to protect myself. I have kids to raise, and I'm not going to get away with what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but it's so good that you could, and I'm glad that you have them in therapy, because
yes.
that's another thing that the Black community doesn't do well,
Hmm.
is get our kids in therapy.
Yes.
And
And
I had never even
ourselves.
heard of it. Huh?
And ourselves.
Yes, yes. But even when we make the choice for ourselves, we still don't make it for our kids,
Yeah.
especially with the breakup. I had never even heard of it until I became principal at a predominantly white school. And I had parents that were divorcing and they said, we're putting our kids in therapy. And I was like, what? It was like a kindergartner and a first grader. I was like,
Yeah.
I never heard of that before. I didn't
Yeah.
even know it existed, but I'm glad it does because it's so necessary, especially with us. We have so much that we're dealing with right now in the world, in
Hmm.
this country.
Hmm.
And to be able to have at least this thing be stable, and to have some home be stable, and to have some therapy for the things that are unstable, so that when you go to school, you may deal with some challenges at school,
Hmm.
you can handle it and you have people to talk to.
Absolutely. And I felt like it was from the beginning, I felt like it was important that they have somebody that was outside of me, outside of their dad, that was a neutral party that could really help them work through feelings that, although they're very open with me and we talk about everything, I'm sure there's some things where they're like, I don't necessarily want to talk to mom about this because I
Yeah.
am biased, right? Because I have my own opinions about what should be happening, what isn't happening, what should have happened, what could have happened. And so them having that outside voice really kind of helps them work through some emotions. And then I also suffer with anxiety in certain situations. And so I also don't want to put that on them. I want them to be able to have their own identity around certain things. And I always tell my daughter too, I said, you don't have anxiety. The situation is giving you anxiety. Don't put that on
Oh, I
yourself.
love
Don't
that.
claim that either. And this situation may be giving you anxiety right now, but guess what? You have a choice.
Mhm.
So,
I love that because I hear it so much now. I mean, everybody is saying, I have anxiety. I'm like, why do you hold that? Why are you taking that
yes,
as is a part of your identity?
yes,
But I love the way you reframed it. That situation is causing you to feel this way. It's causing you to feel anxious, because I have moments where I feel anxious, but
hmm,
I will never say I have anxiety.
right.
This moment is causing me to feel a certain way. And I
Hmm.
love that you were able to reframe that for your kids. That's
Hmm.
huge.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Tell folks what it is that you're working on, where they can find you, because I know there are going to be some folks who are wanting to plug into what you're doing, especially in terms of healing the body and
Yes.
also the insurance and
Mhm.
financial services that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the process of creating a app for women, and also I'm probably going to have to do it for men as well, because a few of them have reached out to me. They're like, Sherry, only women don't need this, but soon to come. But it's called the Wealth Studio, through my new business called the Midlife Edit, and it's really for women in their midlife, really trying to hone in on what it is that they want for themselves. Oftentimes, especially when we have kids or when we have other people that we are responsible for, we put ourselves last. And I did that for so long and suffered the consequences, both health wise and money wise. And so, what this app is helping all women do is to put a lot of things into perspective. I have something called the Wealth Academy that goes through what money is, what is income versus expenses, all the things that schools should have taught us about money. It's in my Wealth Academy. I also have nutrition. I have meal plans. I have an AI agent that I've been training over the last year, that you can ask them any questions about what symptoms that you have, or what you may be dealing with, and they can put together a plan for you. Workout plans, right? Us as busy moms, I know me, I need dumb dinners, something that I can put together 4 or 5 minutes, toss it in the oven, go take a shower, come out, dinner's ready.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I built the Wealth Studio there, with health, wealth, and nutrition tips and advice, and also being able to help put together a plan. Like, I can't put together an individual plan for everyone. So I've trained my AI to do what I would have done. And now it spits out a budget plan for them. It spits out based on how much you want to save or invest, or you're trying to buy a home, but you have a 530 credit score. Here's what you need to do over the next few years in order to get to where you need to go. Here are also the resources available to you that you can utilize, down payment assistance, etc. You want to start investing? Here are the resources in order for you to start doing that. You don't need a lot of money to start. Start putting $5 aside there every month and look at what happens over the next few years. You have kids? Here's where you need to start. There's an AI that spits out games for you and your kids to play based on their age, right? That are age appropriate. So it's going to be so amazing. I'm so excited for people to join, come in, play around, and it should be ready to launch in a few weeks. I just have a few more courses I need to finish behind the scenes, and right now they can join the wait list, and you can join me on Instagram at Midlife with Sherry.
I love it. And that's SHARI.
SHARI.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on here with me.
Yes.
Um, and I will definitely be calling you now that it's funny because I still have you saved in my phone under P4CM.
Yeah.
And is it still her number? But
Yep.
I'm only going to be in contact with you because I'm working on something dealing with parents in schools. And I
Okay.
think that your app would be perfect for them.
I
And
love
so we
it.
may need to partner on something like that.
Okay. Absolutely.
But I wish you much success. Keep taking care of those babies.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
and
And
you
you keep
know,
doing what you're doing too. This is definitely needed, having the conversation, and I'm going to be tuning in to listen as well to all the conversations that you have. This is definitely needed, especially in our community.
thank you. Well, have a happy Juneteenth, the rest of your Juneteenth,
Absolutely.
and kiss the babies.
You too. And hopefully you're kissing your new grandbaby soon.
Oh, I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Yay.
Fingers closed and eyes
Awesome.
crossed. All right.
Okay.
Have a good one.
You
I will be back in 1 minute with our next guest. Welcome back to the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast special edition, Juneteenth edition. And I am super excited to welcome to the line two of my favorite people in the world, Kim Newman and Nate Newman. These are one of my mentors and one of my coaches in my travel business. But what I love most about them, they are obviously married 28 years in the game, and just really living a lifestyle that is a role model for everybody. Raised four children. I'm not going to tell their whole story because I want them to share some of it, but they've become bosses in entrepreneurship after mastering what they did on their jobs. And so I want them to come and share how they did it while also raising kids and just doing great things. Welcome to the podcast.
We are happy to be here, Kalisha. Thanks so much for having us.
I'm so excited to have you all. So tell us a little, let's start with career. Tell us what you all have done career wise and then where you are today.
Okay, you want to start, Newman?
Go ahead, ladies first.
Oh, you want me to start? So from the beginning, I'm kind of driven in the way I went to school, studied accounting, became a CPA, and got married. Before I got married, I actually had a daughter, Jade. So she was born when I was 21. I was still in college. And my parents were so gracious enough to watch her during the school year and bring her to visit me and all that good stuff. So we graduated in 1996. So we graduated and I got my CPA, started my career, and Nate was in my life kind of off and on, but he turned all the way on. And we got married in 98 and started our family. We had the twins 2 years later, but I was an accountant. CPA, wasn't working in public accounting, but corporate accounting in finance, loving it. It was challenging, moving up through the ranks. And it was a good amount of money, but the one thing that was amazing was the bonuses. They could go up to $50,000 at one point, but they would just keep that as a carrot dangling because you're not guaranteed those bonuses. And the way they just structured it, it was a means of keeping you in the game. I loved it, but after I had Crystal, my fourth child, I felt like, you know what, I'm giving my best to my job, and I really need to spend some time with my kids and making sure they are well adjusted. And basically, I know what's going on with them, and I was really covering them in prayer. So career was amazing, but I think more so my passion was being a mom. Like, that's my jam.
Nate Newman. My story is simple. Went to college, graduated with a speech and theater degree, studied biology as well. Went on to get my master's in educational leadership. Worked my way through the ranks: teacher, coach, Title I coordinator, assistant principal, and then went into entrepreneurship. And where we're doing quite well for ourselves. We're in the travel space. So we show other individuals how to create leveraged and residual income through travel, as well as becoming travel agents to book travel and generate extra income. So that's my
Nice.
real simple. We've been married 28 years. Just celebrated 28 years of marriage. We have four children. Our oldest is 31. Twin boys that are 25 and a 19-year-old that is entering her second year of college. And so, we've been around for a minute.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add, when I was in my career and Nate was focused on his career, I was not a person that ever wanted to be stay-at-home mom or anything like that. When I had my twins, I was ready to go back to work. You know how it is. You want a break. You want to talk to some adults. You want to get that freedom. But something happened between just working. And I know this isn't everybody's story, but something was just tugging on me to be more present, even for my husband. And when I made the decision to come home and leave my career, and he really propelled. He went from being a teacher to the coordinator, the Title I coordinator, partial year in vice principal or assistant principal, and straight to principal, just like that. So it was huge. The sacrifice, it was a sacrifice, but it paid off in dividends. And his income shot up, me being there. And I feel like we ate more healthy and I was just more present. So lots of things. It's like choices, it's a balance between these things. Like, what do you do? And it really all is
And they
all
had a domino effect.
exactly. And you never know what that is until you make a decision. And I'm all about intuition, moving by. It's like something about that. It's like, I want to, if it comes to you, you gotta go for it, because that is your spirit man talking. It's like, do this thing. And when you push back, 9 times out of 10, you regret it.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary, but I didn't regret it because I went
I
for
love
it.
that. It's not often that you hear women, especially Black women, say, I want to be able to come home and support my husband, you know,
Mm.
and even to homeschool kids. That's not average, you know. And so how was it that decision to even homeschool the kids? Because some people, it's a very scary thing, and the kids want to go to the big high school with the marching band and all of those things, but to make the decision to homeschool your kids was a big one.
Yeah, it sure was. And it was one we made together. Some women want to homeschool and their husbands are not supporting. So when I came home, so this is the situation. This is the real deal, right?
Here we go.
Here we go. I mean, so you want the best for your kids, but here we are. We're making a modest, middle income, but you want your kids to go to the top schools. But we wanted them to have a Christian education. So we picked kind of what we could afford. And that's not always the best choice, but we did our research. There were good teachers, but if we're honest, we did find ourselves with challenges with some of the teaching and the learning environment and a lot of those things. But I needed to work. He needed to work. We needed somewhere for them to go. We didn't want them in public school because of our own reasons, and we wanted them in a wholesome environment. But Christian schools aren't always the most wholesome environments, to be honest, right? Because all types of kids come there. Some kids get kicked out of regular school and they come to the Christian schools because the public schools won't take them. So there's there's so many. And we were me personally, up at 5 a.m., getting home around 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. I really spent most of my time commuting and with my job. And my kids, I was literally falling asleep when they were trying to read, and I'm trying to help them with their homework. So homeschooling was really getting my time back because I was working, then I was homeschooling at night. Every parent really homeschools. They're supposed to. And this time I just say, these are the hours where we're going to have school, and then we're going to really have family time, and I don't have to be a teacher all day long. But it was a spiritual thing. So I just felt it in my spirit. It was like, Kim, go ahead, you want to say something?
Let me tell you something. When she first came to me, now I'm an educator, and she started talking about homeschool, and I was like, there's great schools that they can go to. Like, our kids were in private school initially, and I was like, there's even some great public schools. Like, we don't need to homeschool, da 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 da. And I was kind of opposed to it in the beginning, but it's crazy how, well, first, we're believers, we're Christians, so we're led by faith. And like, out of the woodwork, we started running into all of these people who were homeschooling. It was almost like when the conversation came up, we started to attract all these people who were talking about homeschool and giving us insight and inspiration. And my wife invited me to go to a homeschool conference. And it was there where my heart was pricked and my mind was opened. And I felt like this is what we're being called to do. We're called to set our children apart. And she had a desire to come home and pour. And, there's a scripture that says, train up a child in the way they should go. And I heard this gentleman say, you're responsible for raising your children. But in today's society, we send our kids to church and we let another man teach them about God. We send it's like we send them to school and let someone else teach them what they need to know. And if you send your children to Rome, you cannot be upset if they become Romans. And so that really resonated with me, that we could take more accountability and responsibility for how our children were going to be raised, and the morals and the values and the lessons, even the education, so my mind was opened up, and then I was on board. And it was a journey. There was some lessons learned. There was times where it was like, are we doing the right thing? It was violently opposed by family and even church members. Like, what are you guys doing? You gave up a whole income. Like, what are you doing? And, now we can fast forward. We have some amazing children. Like they would not be who they are right now had we continued to allow other people to have the responsibility of raising our children, not negating anyone that send their kids to public school or private school or whatever, but we wanted a more hands-on approach. And now that we can see, they say hindsight is 2020, we see the product that was produced because of the decision that we made, and because we came together in unison to make that decision. So it was a journey, but we're glad we made it.
Yes. And I'm sure your kids are too.
They're 50. It's funny to see, and it'll be interesting to see what they choose to do. We have these conversations about, and that's the one thing about parenting. You do what you think is best, but when your kids, it's time for them to make their decisions, we let them make their decisions. We do the best that we can. And I know my parents, when I decided to homeschool, they were supportive. They didn't feel like, oh, what I did wasn't good enough. And I appreciated that. So it's a lot that comes out of that. And the main thing about homeschooling is you are really building relationships with your kids. You get to watch them grow up. You don't miss anything. And when they go through their tough middle years, that middle school, they're open to talk to you more so. I feel like our family is more knit together because of that. It was a huge sacrifice financially. Our story, Kalisha, how, we were driving around with a car that had no heat. Our house had leaks. There were so many financial things we were going through, and we could have said, no, I'm going to go back to work. But we hung in there, and it panned out because our business came along right on time. So I made time for that business.
I love that. You know what? It's, first of all, no heat in Maryland, because I'm from LA. If you don't have no heat, it's okay. But no heat in Maryland, it's a different story. But also, one thing you said, like, to make the decision, and then when things are hard, to still go on that path is huge. Because some people will be like, oh, that's a sign. Financially, we're struggling. That's a sign I need to go back to work.
Right.
And instead of that, you were like, nope, we're going to press on. And there are other options besides just going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's when you had to open up your mind to take that on. Our oldest was going to the 10th grade. So that was huge.
Our youngest they were coming out of 3rd grade?
No, the twins were the middle children, and they were going into the 3rd grade, and Crystal was just born.
Right.
Wow.
And we tried to put them in public school. They didn't get into the lottery. So we made some efforts, but we weren't pleased with what was going on. And primarily here, I wanted my kids to really know their faith. Sometimes we force our faith on our kids. We tell them to go to church. We tell them what to learn. We tell them what to believe. But at home, it was a safe place to question. And they would say, that doesn't really make any sense. Like, how's everybody in a big boat? You know what I'm saying? They were really able to question. And right here with me, I'm their mom. That's okay. I'm not going to beat you over the head with religion. I want you to begin to search. And they were able to pray on their own and learn how to hear from God in a safe place. I let them make a mistake and question. I'm not going to get mad. And that sometimes in Christian schools is like, this is what you got to learn this lesson. And it's just a learning. But I wanted them to have an experience and know what they wanted to follow, who they wanted to follow. And when they began to take it on, that was a proud moment for me because they chose it for themselves.
That's so important, because I hear so many people talk about that, where they had questions and they were just told not to ask questions, but for your kids to be able to come and to have that relationship with you, that they feel comfortable coming to talk to you about the questions that they have, later on in life, when they have other questions about other things, they will come to you because they found that safe space.
Right. But it held us accountable. Like,
True.
Our children grew up in an era where they fact check.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to Google, they're going to research. Now you got AI, and like, it forced us to be responsible in what we were teaching them and what we were presenting to them, to stand strong and firm on what it is that we were trying to share with them. And so, it was if there was ever grappling over ideas, thoughts, and beliefs, it was a good grapple because we got to learn and grow together.
Yeah, we talk politics. They were like, why did you vote for who you voted for? And they'd ask me, even I'm asking them to read books. Have you read any books? Like, there's always a challenge. They challenged me in my education. They challenged me in my, political views and thoughts. And we were able to have conversations. Sometimes they agreed with me and sometimes they didn't. There were some times where I said what I believe and they disagreed, adamantly disagreed. But then as they got older, I started hearing some of the same things. So then I was like, hey, but I didn't push them. I didn't push them into whatever. We were totally different. They grew up with a conservative view of politics, and now they're more progressive and liberal. But we can all talk about these things and, about healthcare, all the stuff about Black issues. We have 2 girls and 2 boys. So we raised them in a way where we didn't really see, it's Juneteenth. We didn't even really see. We grew up around a lot of white people. Homeschooling was kind of a white thing in this area, right? And there were some Black people, but then, so they were like really friends with everybody. But then when they went to college, it was a different thing.
Different experience.
And, and they began to say, okay.
We understand.
And some of the things that came out of their mouth, I was like, okay, I see you getting your experiences. And I try not to be all shocked because I want to stay in their lives. I want to stay getting that information, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, it's good to see. But that relationship was built and they feel safe. And they don't tell me everything. I know that. But even now,
one of the things that come to mind, I remember my wife called me and was like, these boys are off the chain. And I was like, you know what? No TV during the week. We nix television, right? They need to be focused. And the only things, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they could watch after that point was either the History Channel or CNN. And little did we know how much that would shape who they would become. They began to study theology. They began to study politics. They became historians, well-versed. And that actually allowed them to do digging on, why do I believe what my parents taught me? There's one very controversial thing as Christians that people go back and forth with is, like, we're Christians. We believe in Christ. We're not, I grew up Catholic and then Baptist. And when we got married, we went to a non-denominational church. But, we chose not to buy into the commercialism of Christmas. And our children did their own research. And they was like, you know what, Dad? We did our own research and they bought into what we were selling. They was like, so we started our own traditions. We're going to celebrate in our own way and not get caught up in the commercialism. But what happened as a result of that what seemed to be a minor shift in cutting off the TV, only allowing them to look at certain channels and earning the right to look at TV, they became political science majors. One of our sons works in politics. The other one is in the Army, military intelligence, but stays well versed in politics. They watch political podcasts all the time. They send my wife and I information to look at all the time. And I know for a fact that that one decision greatly shaped who they became. So parents, we need to realize that what we allow our children access to, the environments that we create, greatly impact the individuals that our children become. And so, you know, that minor shift had a profound impact, at least on our boys.
For sure.
That is huge. And I believe that wholeheartedly, because the stuff that kids watch on TV, they're internalizing. And even when they go to sleep with stuff on the TV, it's getting into their subconscious mind. It's shaping what they think about and what they approve of and what's acceptable. Their values are shaped by, they're spending hours and hours watching TV. Of course, it's going to shape their values, you know? And so it's so good to hear how you took that stand and how it benefited your kids. Now, I want to take it all the way back to the 70s.
The 70s.
Oh, when we were born.
Tell me how your childhood was, both of you.
Well, okay, I can start. I grew up, my father was a minister, and my mother was one of the teachers at the high school I went to. So I had a very strict upbringing. I couldn't go to parties. I couldn't go to dances. I couldn't really have any friends or anything like that. So that's how I grew up. It was really frustrating. And I was mad. Even my family, like extended family, my grandma would be like, you gotta let them kids do something. We would be in church from sun up to sundown on Sundays, and revival during the summer months. So we were always in church. It was very strict. My parents didn't really talk to me definitely didn't talk to me about sex or anything like that. So everything was like off basis. You know what it is. And I felt like, well, I don't need to talk to my parents. I already know the answers. So I read the Bible. I know all the answers. I don't need to talk to them. So there wasn't really a real relationship there. And I have 2 other siblings. And I think about this sometime, that my parents were Catholic and they were kind of like regular old folks. And then the charismatic movement came, and then they were like, oh, we're on fire, fire and brimstone, Bible thumping Christians. And that was it. And all their kids were going to be perfect little Christian people but we did go to public school. My mother was a public school teacher. But I couldn't do anything. I was pretty good, but I probably was the worst kid out of the 3. So they said at the time. So that's how I grew up.
My background is interesting. So grew up in DC until about the age of 9 or 10. We moved to what's called Prince George's County, which for many, 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 many years was the most affluent area for African Americans in the whole country. And, moving from DC to Prince George's County was like the come up, right? And it was a culture shock for me. It was the first time I ever been called the N-word. It was going from a predominantly Black Catholic school to a predominantly white Catholic school. So I went to Catholic school from 1st to 8th grade. I mean, we tried public school half a year in 4th grade. We tried it again in 7th grade, and I got into like 2 or 3 fights, and they shipped me right back to private school. I grew up Catholic for the most part. My parents were Catholic. My parents were government workers. They bought into that dream, get a good government job with benefits. Neither one of my parents graduated from college. And so I was a very outspoken child. I was allowed from a young age to speak my mind. I don't know how much my parents enjoyed that middle school and high school, but high school was kind of contentious in our home because I was very opinionated. I was going to stand up for what I believed in, and that was kind of what was instilled in me. I actually ran away to college. When I left home, my parents didn't know where I went. I ran away to college. Um, I'm that guy that felt like I kind of got it by the bootstraps out the mud, um, worked my way through college on my own, graduated, self-made man, keeping it real. That was my persona. Um, because of my grandmother, I transitioned from Catholic beliefs to the Baptist church. And it actually saved my life, I think. Many of my friends that I grew up with got into hustling, dealing drugs, getting locked up, dying. But because I got into church, I joined the choir, and I was going to church. Honestly, if I keep it a buck, the girls was cute. I'm going there. Like, hang out with y'all? Nah, I'm going over here. And not realizing that those biblical principles were being instilled in me, and it started to shape me as a person. I became hungry for the things of God at a very young age, graduated, made amends with my family because I was kind of estranged. I was the son that, my siblings were told, don't grow up and be like him. Because I was rebellious. I thought I knew everything, right? That was kind of the label that was placed on me. And, I learned a lot of lessons, matured very quickly, learned how to survive. So I have that survival instinct. I got that dog in me, that people talk about. And then, we had an off and on friendship, relationship, but something shifted towards the end of my college career. Very much focused on God, the things of God. It kind of got attached with Kim, and then our relationship really blossomed. We were focused on God. We fasted together. We read the Bible together. We ended up getting married. It shocked everyone. That
it seemed fast.
Because it seemed super fast. I mean, we courted for maybe a year. And all the people had bets. Man, I bet you don't make it to the altar. I actually collected money on my wedding day because people didn't think I was going to go through with it. And here we are, 28 years later.
So many haters.
Strong. And so
they need to double the bet now. They need to just go and pay you double now.
Hey, look, now they call us for advice, right? They fans now. But I always knew I would be successful. I always knew that I would overcome. I always had that belief that I could do whatever I set my mind to. And so that greatly shaped the man that I became. It didn't matter what hurdle was in front of me, what obstacle was in front of me. I believe that I could overcome it. I'm either going to go through it or go over it or go around it. And that's kind of been my journey. And it allowed me to believe that anything is possible if you don't give up. So that's kind of who I am.
I was pampered, taken care of, total dependent.
She's still taken care of.
Period.
How many siblings did you all have?
Well, I'm the middle. I had an older brother and a younger sister, and we grew up in Southern Maryland, where it was mostly,
the country.
Yeah, it was probably 10% Black, 90% white, and my parents were from they were poor. My father's family were farmers. They were tenant farmers. They had their own land, but they didn't have enough money to keep their own land, and they sold it. So then they were working for other people's farms, going from place to place. My mother's family had a little more money because my grandfather worked for the state road. And they both went to college. So it was quite interesting because just this recently I had a conversation like, how do you go to college when y'all were poor? He always had a mentor. He always somebody said, there's promise in you. So they basically made sure he had money to go to college. So he went to University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, and my mother's family had money and they believed education was important. So my grandma's like, whatever we got to do, whether I got to clean houses, whatever. And my grandfather always worked. We're going to send everybody to college that wants to go. So my mother was able to go to college and they paid for it. And she went on to get her master's. So I come from families that believe education is important. My father's side of the family, entrepreneurs, hardworking. They have cleaning businesses. So they are all very professional. That's kind of where I come from. And my parents are big on education. And they didn't want me to work through college. They didn't want me to work in high school. I got a job just to get some freedom, just so I could meet people. I was like, I want a job, but they want to make sure you focus. That's your job. Focus on education, get the things that you need. And so I was able to launch, but they're always supportive, overbearing. But at this point in my life, I appreciate everything, even the things that got on my nerves. So, but
I remember it might have been last year that you all got to take your parents, Kim, to Hawaii on a trip, and it was amazing. I
yes.
mean, what was that, a hurricane or something that hit, a tsunami or something that
Tsunami
hit?
was supposed to come, so we had to leave. We had to leave the port. We were on the Big Island.
3-hour tour.
No, we made it back. We made it back. But that was amazing because my mother has always wanted the finer things in life. But I think we lived, a regular middle class, maybe upper middle class life, but we were never really able to travel. My parents traveling was going to New Jersey to visit this old lady, Mrs. Smith, that took care of my dad when he came out of college. We had to go see Miss Smith, and we drive to Atlantic City and just go on the boardwalk. And we never booked a hotel. Like, I didn't even think that you could book hotels. We stayed in the Motel 6. I mean, we were just riding around all night, New Jersey Turnpike, and looking for vacancies. So if it was a weekend where lots of people were there, we just stayed wherever, and we were just happy to have a pool. So that was my travel experience. They always took us somewhere, but we just drove to New Jersey. We saw Mrs. Smith. We went on the boardwalk. We ate food, maybe some amusement parks, and we took one big trip to California. Wow. And we went to Tijuana on a bus trip. Down there.
Bus trip. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't recall us ever going on vacation.
Y'all never went on vacation.
The first time my parents ever went anywhere, I was in college. They took my younger siblings. I grew up with two younger brothers. I was the oldest. I paved the way.
He was 12 years older.
So 10 years older than my next sibling. And then I found out I had other siblings later in life. I met my biological father at 38, found out that I had 3 sisters. But they went to Disney World. That was their big trip. We never traveled. Yeah. Travel wasn't even in the conversation. I mean, vacation was a staycation. We was home, so I didn't get to venture out.
But the beautiful thing is you've been able to do some things very differently with your kids.
Absolutely.
Right? So tell me how you made the transition into entrepreneurship and the impact that it's had.
My very first experience with entrepreneurship came from an older cousin that I, revered as an uncle because he was that much older than me. He got me into network marketing. I didn't know it was network marketing. I was selling health and wellness products, Pycnogenol, right, which you can get in GNC right now, which is crazy. And then he got me into long distance. I don't know if y'all remember this, prepaid long distance cards, right? I got into that. And then after I got married and I was in education, I was an educator, a good friend of mine kind of formally introduced me to network marketing, where I was educated on what it really was and what it meant and the power of it. And I started selling legal plans, helping people get, representation by lawyers for their needs. And that is when the entrepreneurship bug kind of bit both of us. We started to be exposed to multiple income streams, the power of residual income, tax benefits of having a home-based business. And it was a paradigm shift for me. I began to personally develop. I began to read books about self-empowerment. And I really began to chase a larger dream than just existing, just surviving, just going to work for a paycheck. It opened me up to a new world. And I've always made money, but it wasn't until the last, I would say 10 years or so that we made life-changing income. And so that entrepreneurship bug bit me. It transferred to my wife, and we began to grow together. And, you know, one of our rules is if we read a book or experience something that elevates our thinking or makes us grow, that the other has to read it so that we don't become unequally yoked, that we grow together. So that you understand the decisions that I want to make. You understand the decisions that I'm making to empower our financial situation. And so that's worked for us. And so that's how I got the entrepreneurship bug. And I always thought I would be wealthy. I thought it would be in entertainment.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it would either come from singing or acting. I thought I would be famous. There's quite a few people who have videotaped me in various instances. And I would say, you better save this video because one day I'm going to be wealthy and famous and rich. And, you know, I used to tell my younger siblings, your brother is going to be wealthy one day. And, you know, that drove me and it continues to drive me. So that's my story about entrepreneurship.
Yeah. What is very interesting, this gentleman, when we first got together, he gave me a book. He was like, read this book. This was Good Morning, Holy Spirit. And I was not into books. I mean, I was able to get good enough grades without always reading the whole book. That's how I worked my life. And I'm in accounting, and I avoided writing papers and doing those things like the plague. So then I come out, and he's always been a reader. So then I'm getting exposed. So even before, I don't know, entrepreneurship, before I met, he was just reading, always learning. He's always been a reader. So then I started reading books, and I was afraid of public speaking. I wasn't afraid. It didn't feel good because nobody likes public speaking ordinarily, right? But then I had to do some things because with my Tolson side of the family, every time one of the siblings turns 50, everybody has to speak and say something. You know, it's a great production. So I get up there to say my speech, and I end up crying and running off the stage. I mean, it was a whole mess. And that happened a couple times, and I was like, that's not for me. We start with prepaid legal, and I'm like, oh, bet I'm going to get this done. I joined Toastmasters so that I can do the presentation, so that I know how to speak and I know how to present this, because we're going to go out here and make this money. So that's how I got started in entrepreneurship. I had no idea. But then thinking back, my father always had Shackley. So he also sold insurance. I did not know that. It didn't click. You know what I'm saying? He did it. So he sold insurance. Everybody did that. Back in the day, you graduated from college, you didn't get a job, you were selling insurance. So mostly everybody in our community was selling insurance. And then, so he did Shackley. He still does Shackley, but he is what we call a yellow personality. My father is super yellow, and he is literally giving everything away. He never wants to charge people. He's never going to make money in business because he just wants to help people, and he loves the products. And he was like, oh, I can give it to you for wholesale. So that was my experience with entrepreneurship from a child always. And my mother she had an Avon lady. So I knew that she had an Avon lady. She did interior design, whatever that one thing was called, Tupperware. So she definitely had parties. Most parents had them parties in the house. So we always had Tupperware.
Some of y'all got Tupperware in your cabinet right now.
Right? So I knew about it, but I wasn't into it. So I was kind of open to it. So when prepaid legal, I was like, okay, let's do this. But that company, nothing did not compare.
She name dropping.
I'm just saying it's not even prepaid legal anymore. So only if you know, you know. So, but the way I saw the company run and the team was run, it wasn't like this one. I feel whole. I feel like I'm aligned with who I am and what I want to be a part of. So I did take a break because that prepaid legal situation, we went hard. I feel like we went hard in the paint. We were going to every meeting. We were, doing the thing, and we just didn't get it was a hustle. It was a grind all the time, and it never paid off to the point that we had external influences, negative influence. There are people around us who just did not like network marketing, people that were influential in our lives. And it was just like, you're doing the wrong thing. You're oppressing people, and it's a pyramid. And they were really pressing down on us. And then we went into product sales, and I didn't like that. So I was just like, this may be not for us. But when travel came along, hey, we definitely wanted to travel. We had just bought a timeshare.
So now I feel when I got to know you guys, you were in this travel company, and my best friend and also my sponsor in the travel business was a teacher at the same school with Nate Newman, and she overheard some conversations that got her interested in learning more about this business. And so, tell me how you end up making the transition to travel.
Well, I have a really good friend that I met at the government printing office. Like I said, I did work federal government for about 6 years. And there I met a gentleman who became one of my best friends in the world. And when I became a principal, he shot me a text message that said, "Hey, Nate, I know you're doing your principal thing, but I found something that I think can really afford us the opportunity for financial freedom." And based off of the relationship, I took a look, and I almost missed it, Kalisha, because I told my wife when I went, I said, "Look, I ain't signing up for anything. I ain't buying nothing. I'm just going to see my friend I haven't seen in a few years." And then a few moments later, brought it home. I said, "Baby, I think I could kill this. It's travel. I get to sell fun. I get to sell recess. I think I could kill this." She said, "Let's give it 18 months. If it proves to be what you think it is, then cool, we'll keep doing it. If not, we'll find something else." And it's been the beginning of a journey that has flat out changed our life.
Yeah, I would say my thought, we had done several things. And the last thing, the goo. So I was okay.
There we go again with
or
the
the juice. I said
it was a nutritional. It was a gel nutritional supplement, is what it was.
Okay,
it's not good.
Okay,
I knew what she was talking about.
Yeah, it was like a jelly, gooey thing that you take for vitamins or whatever. But that's beside the point. This is how. So after all that, like I felt a little bit burnt out after the major, the legal plans. I felt like, okay, this is too much. And then, but Nate loves this industry. He thrives. He's a great leader. I mean, he's in his element. It feels right. So I could never stop him from being an entrepreneur, especially in network marketing, because he was alive. He loves education. I mean, he was in there. He's good at it. Let's say he's a great leader. But when it came to the business, you could see a spark that he didn't have for education. And the education was kind of weighing on him because a lot of politics and stuff in that. So I said, go ahead, do your thing. But when all the products are building up, I'm like, look, why don't we do something like travel? I said, that makes sense. That makes sense because you're going to travel anyway. And, you can legally deduct the things having to do with your business, because buying more products, saying you're going to write it off because it's tax deduction, but we wouldn't buy it ordinarily. To me, that never made sense. So travel always made sense to me. So you want to do travel.
That's that CPA talking right there.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's how I see. That's the legal way to, and take advantage until you really start making money. Because I'm all about paying taxes if you're making that money. I mean, at some point. you're gonna outpace all that. But that is how I saw it. And I had to admit that I wanted to start traveling because I let the timeshare people talk me into it. But I felt kind of weird.
Let me tell y'all something. We went to this timeshare. It was like, look, man, we're gonna get this free vacation, and we made a pact. We made a deal.
The deal.
You might as well say we pinky swore almost, right?
He said
we're gonna say no. I don't care what they throw at us.
Yeah.
We're gonna say no. We're gonna get this free trip. We're gonna get this free Visa card. We gonna live it
extra,
up.
Yeah, go extra cash, all that. Yep.
What had happened was
we got a great deal. We got a great deal.
Like,
we got a great deal.
Can I talk to let me talk to my husband for a second. I'm
we
like,
said
here
no.
we go.
We said no. We said
I
no,
stuck to my
no.
guns. I was like, no. This one here.
Okay. I don't know. Do you know anything about these timeshares? We have paid off our timeshare at this point. We didn't have a lot of money, but our timeshare was $350 a month.
Look.
Wait, man, it's a great deal. Do you know how much our maintenance fees are? $400. People spend these astronaut. I had to do it. I would say
we use it, we leverage it. It's been a great thing. I'm just saying, initially,
we had a pact.
We had a deal. And 2 weeks later, you know how that meme goes? A few moments later.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, we was in travel. Like we didn't really.
Yeah, I felt bad about that at that point.
But we did.
I was like,
we have optimized it since we bought it, and it's paid off, and it's ours now. We definitely leverage it. It's a good thing if you can afford it, and we did get a good deal. I would say we got a great deal. However, we had a pact, Kalisha.
But I love the fact that Kim was able to get her way at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Let me talk to my husband. Let me work my magic.
Yes, exactly. And that is a sign of travel. Yes. So that's how we got into entrepreneurship. I simply love this company because of the leadership. They move in integrity,
culture,
and the culture. I'm just like, I'm all about it. I'm all about freeing our community. I'm all about putting people in position to win in a major way. Big ups to you for helping people to raise amazing children, looking to the future, going to school off our mistakes. So I just want to put out I have a mom's group. It's called Garnering Grace.
Shameless plug. Here we go.
It's called Garnering Grace for Moms. So it's through our church, Zion Church. But there's an Anywhere campus where anybody can plug in, Keith Battle. But anybody can be a part of the group. And what I love about this group, I don't limit it to just moms of little kids, infants, 1 years, and then middle school and high school, but all moms. So I'm moms of adults, and we have our own issues, right? That we are growing up through. And then you have younger moms, but they really appreciate the insight that they're getting, the new moms are getting, because people are not talking about how being so strict really damages your kids and causes resentment, and it doesn't make for a healthy relationship. So sometimes, and just the other day, it's like they have to be free to be different, free to be candid with you, free to be vulnerable with you, and free to make mistakes. We thought we were going to make our kids perfect, and nobody's perfect. And guess what? We're not perfect. And that's why parenting is hard. It's hard because the people doing it, everybody involved is imperfect. They're all flawed, and we're all learning and growing together. And that's the basis for the group. So if you check out, send me a message on Tripping with the Newmans, I can send you an invitation to the group because it really is good. It's helping us not to get so caught up and frustrated and rushing our kids around and, being on our agenda and letting them lead a little bit. It's okay because they're actually people. We didn't really see them as people. We thought, oh, these are our kids. But no, they're human beings and they have thoughts and desires and all types of things. And we need to tap into that. So that's one thing. Um, just being an entrepreneur is giving me freedom to have these thoughts and do some things. Even like you're able to do this. It's on your heart. But if you are working a 9 to 5 all the time, you probably couldn't even dig into the thoughts that you're
Yeah.
having and why you were created, why you made your mistakes, why you had your successes. So I applaud you for that. I'm excited about where, entrepreneurs are going and really changing the world. And we're making money. The more money you make, the more audience people going to listen to you, right?
Yeah.
You got to have success.
And the thing is, when you try to control what kids do and you're super strict, they just find more clever ways to get away with whatever it is that they wanted to do. They will find a way. It's not that they're, and for what benefit? Then they'll probably have some regrets on it too, because when they finally get a chance to get away and do something, they may do more than they would have done had they not, been so restricted. So it's so good to be able to have parents having those conversations, because we weren't raised. We didn't. I always say that after prenatal classes, there were no more instructions on parenting. And those prenatal classes were about how to get your baby to latch on and take care of the umbilical cord. And after that, there's no more instruction. And so we have to share our own mistakes.
And we believe parenting's like when your children, they're these springs, and you can either let the spring go and they're gone, or you can let the spring go like this and they stay right there with you. And so we've learned how not to be so abrupt and so quick to just, let that spring fly away. We definitely put some parameters in place and some guidance in place so that when you let the spring go slowly, they don't go that far, from you. But they still are free to experience their own process, their own journey. And one of the things my wife has hit me to is, children are given a board of directors. They call parents, grandparents, aunties, and uncles. But there comes a time in life when children get to dictate who they want their board of directors to be. And we're so fortunate to have children who have decided to ask us to be on their board of directors. They consult us. They seek us for their advisement. They want our input. They want our guidance. And it's a privilege to be invited to the table. And so we've learned that through applying a little more grace, because, we got 3 tiers of children.
Yeah.
We have our 31-year-old, and 6 years later, we got our 25-year-old twins. And then 6 years later, we got our 19-year-old daughter. And we've grown as parents through each transition.
Different.
We've become better parents. We've become more equipped. And, we were very legalistic initially, and we applied more grace as, we've grown and matured as parents. And we see the difference that and the impact that it has on our children. And the version of us now is the best version that all of our children get. But we definitely learn some lessons along the way that we share with other parents and young parents, how important applying some grace, right, to what we do, and that there's multiple ways to help children navigate this thing that we call life. We've made mistakes. But we've learned from them. Like you said, there's no handbook that you get when you take what your parents did and you do your best to improve upon it, and you go with that. But we've been able to glean some major lessons through applying grace in parenthood.
I love it. So tell folks where to get in touch with you all.
Well, we're both on Facebook, Kim Newman. Nate Newman. I'm on Instagram, Nate Newman Speaks. So you can get me there. We also have a TikTok called Tripping with the Newmans. We also have a Facebook page called Tripping with the Newmans where we go live. It's not an official podcast yet, but it's podcast-ish, right?
Mhm.
Where we share our lives, we give you some insight into who we are. We when we travel, when we do business, as we parent, we talk about life issues and our perspective, and it gives an opportunity for people to really glean, from our experiences and our life. And so you can connect with us Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Again, Tripping with the Newmans on Facebook and TikTok. Kim Newman,
Kim Newman 6.
Kim Newman 6
Instagram.
on Instagram, and Nate Newman Speaks on Instagram.
And TikTok is Kim Possible. I pretty much do like dances with Crystal on.
Look, they're going to start a podcast-ish called, what is it?
We don't have a name for it, but Crystal came up with that Dirt That Hurt.
Dirt That Hurt. Like
Dirt.
moms and daughters talking
Ditching
about
the
the
dirt.
real
Yeah, the dirt
of
that
how,
hurt.
how to come together, how to talk, how to communicate, how parents can help their children, how children can help their parents, and just talking about
It's
real
like,
life stuff. It's good. It's
because
good
Crystal
info.
gets to get all, she gets all the information, even the stuff I don't want to talk to her about. So, like kids that may not want to talk to their parents about certain things. So we're going to talk about those things that the parents don't want to talk about. You got to talk about it. I'm telling you. And I tell young parents, don't wait to start talking about sex when they 6 and 7.
Even if it's uncomfortable.
Right in there, right in that pocket. That's when you got to do it, because you're late. If they're 9, they already know what somebody else taught them. Yep. And I tell my parents, whoever tells your child the truth first has their heart. Yep. You're losing them. When you don't tell them the truth, when they get some truth from somewhere else, that's the person that they're going to admire, they're going to trust, and they're going to be led to. And you don't know if they love them or not. You do. So you have to tell the truth first and often, and let them know that they can make mistakes and they're not perfect. You got to tell them the truth, and you got to tell them quickly before somebody else does and has their heart.
And let me tell you, and girls want to hear from their mamas
and their dads.
They want to hear from their dads too. But I told my oldest, and one of these, you told me and mom didn't tell me. So it's, know your children.
That's a female.
Yeah. Right. That's, but have the open communication. And what I love about our youngest, who's received the most grace.
Yeah, she's raised in grace.
She is she's the only child that didn't get a spanking, Kalisha Washington. I remember the day she told me, she said, "Daddy, you'll never have to spank me because I'm not going to do what they did." Like, she watched, she observed, right? But I'm different. I'm different now too, right? And so, but the level of transparency that this young one has is sometimes, for me as a dad, it's scary. Right. But I love the fact that I'm invited to the boardroom. Right. Now, she doesn't she tells her more than she tells me, of course, because I'm still dad. Right. I still have a level, she wants me to think certain things. But the level of things that she shares with me is so beyond the scope of what the other 3 shared with me. Like, it's amazing how much she trusts our input, our guidance. She seeks our advice, and that's what you want. When you can build that type of relationship with your child, where they come to you for advice and guidance so that they make the best decision possible, it's an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling. It's scary. The journey is scary, but man, if you can get that trust built with your child, where they bring you those issues, those concerns, where they allow you to give that input, it's a very amazing experience.
It begins with honesty. When your child asks you if you smoke weed, you gotta tell them.
They want to know.
You gotta tell them.
We want to present we're perfect. Like for so many years, I was careful. I didn't want them. We didn't have alcohol in the, but when you
I still agree
begin,
with that.
to, no, it's a responsibility. Is what you expose your children to, right? And again, it's that spring analogy that I use. But what I love is that now my sons and I, we're entering a space where I'm not just dad. And some people may disagree with this, but they're becoming my friends. I love my sons. There's a respect level that they always have for me, and they always want to present themselves at the best version of themselves. But when they can come to me in their toughest times because they trust me, man, there's no greater feeling than when your child comes to you when they need help because they trust you and they know that. And my daughter would say, "Can I share something with you and you not judge me?"
She will say that.
And I'm like,
I don't know.
yeah.
Right.
And I gotta brace myself,
Like,
right? But the fact that she's even
she wants to
courageous
do it. Yeah.
enough to expose that vulnerability to me is huge. It's huge. And I honor that. I value that. And so I have to temper sometimes that initial response that you want to get. And I got to listen to understand versus, and I have to ask her sometimes, do you want me to just listen? Or do you want me to give you my advice? Because, dads, we're quick to fix things. We're the fixers. Mm-hmm. She's like, Dad, I don't need the motivational. I don't need the motivational business leader right now. I need my father. I need you to just listen. And when I'm not sure, I ask, what do you need from me right now in this moment? And little does she know, she's teaching me how to be a better dad. Mm-hmm. Right. And it allows me to be a better mentor to other fathers that are going through the same things with daughters and sons, how to listen to understand versus always listening to respond, because there's a difference.
Yep. Well, thank you all for sharing a part of your Juneteenth with me. I appreciate it. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm sure we'll see each other again on this podcast. I appreciate you all. This was so helpful. And I know that there's so many things that people can take away in their own parenting. So I appreciate that. And have a great rest of your Juneteenth.
Good.
Okay, you too.
And let me give this quick plug. If you are a parent that is looking to be a better provider, that's looking to generate some extra income, you need to connect with the Newmans, Tripping with the Newmans, because not only will we show you how to be a better provider, we'll show you how to create that long-term sustainable leverage and residual income to help you be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. They say money is not everything, but when it helps you take care of the people that mean everything, that's what's important. So connect with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Tripping with the Newmans.
Thank you.
All right.
Tripping with the Newmans. Have a good one.
All right. Good deal.
Bye-bye.
And I will be back in 1 minute. Welcome back to the Don't Screw Up Your Kids special edition, Juneteenth edition. And I am excited to bring to the front one of my friends in business, Coach PBJ is what we call her. But this is Paula Birch Jackson. She's in ministry. She's an elder of her church. She is a woman of faith, a servant leader, a speaker, an author, and I've personally read one of her books that I absolutely love and got to dig into with her. But she is a person who cares about people and especially women and helping us get rid of the baggage that we carry. And some of it we've been carrying since very young. And so thank you so much for agreeing to come on the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. I am well. Thank you so much for having me here on today.
Yeah, so I read your entire book, The Valley Between Me, Myself, and I loved it. I couldn't stop. Like I literally couldn't stop. I was like, I'm gonna read a chapter. I couldn't stop reading. You had me locked in. Had me locked in. Yes. So tell the folks a little bit about what you do and what inspired your passion to minister to people the way that you do.
Oh, that's a good question. What inspired me was just life, right? First of all, I am a life coach, and I help people what I call chase their shadows to shine. Now, I have not been calling it that forever. I just started calling it over the last maybe 3-4 years because I had an epiphany. I lost my first husband in 2006 and didn't see it coming. It was a unexpected death. He wasn't sick. We went on a couples retreat, and then we came back. He got sick, and 2 weeks later, he was fighting for his life, which he lost it. And so life began to unravel for me. And I began to see everything through the eyes of grief, but I did not know that I was seeing things through the eyes of grief. I thought I was just surviving. I thought I was just, I was this woman of faith. I had faith. God was my keeper. I had the errands in the urn. He was holding me up. And I just felt like I was doing the thing. But what I did not know is that I never grieved, because when my husband died, literally, the moment he passed away, the moment they said to me, he passed away, of course, I lost it. And it was me, my daughter, my mom, and a friend. We had just walked down the street from the hospital just to get my daughter out the hospital for a while. And we got the call while we were sitting in the nail shop getting a pedicure. And Kalisha, I just remember sliding out of that chair. My whole body went limp, right? And my mom, who meant well, said, Paula, you have to be strong for your daughter, for your child, because my daughter was over in a corner and she can tell by the scream what it meant. And so she was over in the corner, biting her teeth, gripping her fist to her face like that. And I looked up and I saw her, and I just grabbed her and we just ran. And we didn't know where we was running to. And thank God for a couple picked us up and took us back to the hospital. But from that moment, even though, and I remember saying to my mom, what do you mean be strong for my kids? I have no strength for myself. But when I saw my daughter like that, I had to put my big girl pants on because my child needed me. At that time, my father was still alive, so I didn't know what that felt, right? So I didn't only carry my grief, I carried theirs. And so for the next, the next 8 years, I was, hold on one second. Go back over there. Look, you said your podcast is Don't Screw Up Your Kids. So I'm not going to yell at this little one, even though she's been playing by herself all day long. And now I get on my podcast and she wants to come see who I'm talking to. So say hello to everybody.
Hi.
This is Miss Anna Lee. Now, can you go back and play while Sweet Pea talk to the Miss Kalisha? Okay. And so, so what I didn't realize is that I was
How old
walking.
was your daughter at that time?
My daughter, she was 15. My daughter was 15 and my son was 17. And like I said, we did not see this coming. We had no time to plan, to wrap our mind around it or anything. And so I remember grabbing her, but I began to put on my big girl pants. And my whole life at that time became making sure that my daughter and my son did not feel that loss. Right. I know that they would feel it in their heart, but as far as our living condition, making sure that, it was funny, the couple before me talked about travel business. They probably Planet Network. It sounds like it's a Planet Network, but I was with Donald Bradley back then too. We were in it was a YTB back then, and I was on Donald Bradley's team back then, and I went head on into the travel business. Did very well. It was a great business. Did very well in it, and that's how I sustained my household to replace my husband's salary at that time. But everything I was doing it through shadows because I didn't want to face anything. So I had to shrink. I had to suppress my grief. I had to suppress my anger. I had to suppress everything. And then in 2014, I woke up that morning, Khaleesa, and I felt this presence. I just felt this. It felt like nothing but love. If I had to put word, it felt like love. And so I was like, okay, God, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. And that presence stayed with me. That present, it was on Sunday morning. That present walked with me rode me to the church, walked me to the door. But when I went inside the church, the present didn't come in. I felt like something left me in that whole service. And when I got into the service, it was as if God did something to my eyes. And as I was scanning, I was on pulpit duty that day. As you mentioned, I'm an elder. And I was on pulpit duty that day. And as I was scanning the congregation, I believe I saw with the eyes of God. And what I saw was all of us was in church pretending, performing church, not being the church. We were performing church. All of us had on what I call the church faces, like we're so super saved and that everything was together. But God showed me behind those faces, behind those masks. We were all dealing with some stuff. We were all hurting, but church taught us how to lie to ourselves. And so we don't, because I'm blessed and highly favored. No, I'm not. I'm toe up from the flow up. But we weren't trained. We weren't taught to say that, right? And so that incident, I remember when Pastor closed the door, I literally ran out of the church. I ran as fast as I could. And one of my girlfriends, she says, Paula. And I said, what? She says, where are you going? Where are you running to? I was like, I don't know. I just have to get out of here. Now, at that time, Khaleesa, you got to remember, I was processing everything through the eyes of shadows. I just didn't know that's what it was. Mm-hmm. And at that time, something was wrong with the church. Something was wrong with everybody but Paula, right? And so I ended up taking a sabbatical from church and start working on myself. I began to visit other thoughts of religion. I just talked to other people, just start experiencing life in a different way. And fast forward 2022, somewhere 2023, I found myself, it was before, it was 2017, because that's when I quit my good government job. Because what I kept finding myself doing was going from 0 to 100, and I would be completely out of character. I remember having a supervisor who was 6'4", about 300 pounds. He was military. And I was saying something to him. He was saying something to me, and I'm rolling my neck. And he said to me, he never saw a soldier talk to him like that. I said, well, good, because I'm not a soldier. And he stood up, and I don't know if that was supposed to intimidate me. So I stood up, and I'm up in this man's face. But it's as if I'm looking at myself, girl, who are you? What are you doing? That's not how you talk to your superior. You know better than that. But I didn't care. I had no more room to suppress what I was feeling. And so I went home, and as God would have it, looking through YouTube, Facebook, one of those things, a reel of a little girl running from her shadow popped up on my feed. And this little girl was running, and everywhere she went, of course, her shadow was there. She was terrified of her shadow. And it was just so cute to me. I kept replaying it. And on about the 4th or the 5th time that I looked at it, I said, that is just so cute. She's scared of her shadow. She's so scared of herself. And I literally heard the Holy Spirit says, just like you. And I'm like, what you mean, just like me? It was at that point that my shadow work began. So I started looking at, what is a shadow? What you mean by that? And I found some work by a psychiatrist, Carl Jung. And I started studying his stuff, and people are doing shadow work. And I'm like, what is this thing? And I began to chase. So what I started, I was like, so whenever I have an issue now, whenever something comes up, I began to say to myself, Why did you think that thought? Why did you why did you feel that emotion? That's when I realized that I can't tell anybody that they made me feel anyway, because people can't make you feel anything. All they can do is trigger something that was already in you. And so when that happens, we have to, I call it, so my shadows are shame, hurt. I call it the shift method: shame, hurt, insecurity, fear, and trauma, right? We have to shift shame to self identity, self confidence. We have to shift hurt to healing, insecurity to identity, fear into faith, and trauma into truth, right? And we do that by what I call, see, my pastor, whenever he preaches on Sunday, he's going to give it to you so you can remember it. So that's how I do stuff too. So I thinking, what can I remember? And so as I was thinking about that, God, how do I deal with my shadow? First, you got to figure out where it came from. So you have to chase it. And then once you chase that shadow, now you got to face it. Once you face it, you got to embrace it. Once you embrace it, you got to erase it. And then you've got to replace it. What are you saying, Paula? Now I got to chase, when was the first time I felt it like this? When was the first time? So like I told you, God had revealed to me that one of my shadows was anger. That was birthed out of hurt. And when I chased that shadow all the way back, 2 incidents as a child came up. The first incident, my mom, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the commercial where people were standing outside the doors waiting for the stores to open, and they was knocking on the door saying, open, open, open. Right. Remember that commercial? I said, they got their commercial from working my mom, because every time, especially around the holiday, mom is at the door waiting on them to unlock the doors to get in. And guess what? Mom would be the one. They would have to come over to allow sister and say, we'll be closing in 15 minutes. Please bring your items to the front. And my mom would drag us with her all day. To today, Khaleesa, I hate shopping. So I thank God for online shopping, because if it was, I would be naked. I promise you I would, because I hate going to the stores. And so, but I remember an incident in the store. I just didn't want to be there. I was tired and I wanted to go home. And so mama was getting ready to go to another store, and I fell out. I had a temper tantrum. And I had that mama. Probably that mama you talked about right there, right? Mama, where you fall out at, where you act up at, is where I'm going to get you at. And I believe whatever she got her hands on, I want to say it was her shoe. I don't remember. But I got a spanking right there in the store for following out. And it wasn't so much the spanking as what my mom said while she was spanking me. What she told me in my 4 or 5-year-old self is that you don't have a reason to be angry. If you want to be angry, I'm going to give you something to be angry for. So I then interpreted that as I don't have a right to be angry. I associated anger with pain, getting a whipping. So I learned to suppress it. So throughout my life, a lot of things would happen that would make me angry that I wouldn't respond to. I was the model Christian for turn the other cheek. I would not show anger. And I remember the first time I started showing anger was after I got married for the first time. And my oldest sister, Lord rest her soul, she would tell my late husband, my sister never got angry until she got married. Like,
but in your book, you were talking about how another thing that your mom shaped in you, you were saying you would come home with straight A's. And
that was the thing.
Yeah, that was good. But then your sister had an A and B, and all the rest fails, and she got dinner and praises and all of that stuff. Right. And I was just like, well, I know where the mindset comes from as a parent, where you're like, I still want them to push to achieve more, but I'm like, there's straight A's. Right. There's nowhere to go beyond that. That's straight A's. Right. And if they did it once, they know that they can do it again. Right. So celebrate it.
Right. And what my mom did is, like I said, she celebrated my sister's 1 good grade, and in my mind dismissed my 6 good grades. Right. Now, I've learned to give people grace, because they can only be who they are in the space that I can. And what my mom thought she was doing by praising that 1 grade, it would encourage my sister to do better, to do more. But which in essence, what you were teaching her is that's all you required. So of course, when I had kids, I told both of them when they went to school, I did not birth B students. Y'all are both A students. I don't honor B's. I honor A's. Now, that sounds harsh, but I did. If they got a B, it was okay. But I wanted to always push them to get an A because I know that they could. So I would just say I didn't birth no A students. So or no B students. So what they began to do was compete with each other to see who can bring home the most A's. Well, of course, I believe that that parenting came from what I experienced with my child because it never made my sister better. She just kept getting worse. And eventually she didn't get no A's. You know what I mean? Because again, that psychological training that my mama didn't understand then was teaching her that that's you don't require more of me. And Paula getting over here getting all these A's, you ain't even take her out getting nothing to eat. So what point? Right. You know what I'm saying? And so it was so funny because when my daughter got in college, she called me one day and she had some class that she was struggling with and she got a C. And that was supposed to be her final grade. And she said she stayed after class and she said to the professor, my mama didn't birth no no A student, no B student. So I know I can't tell her I got a C in this class. Is there anything that I can do to make this good? And he thought that was so cute that he didn't give her an opportunity to make up that grade and she ended up getting an A out of that class. But I thought it was so funny that stayed. So in other words, it taught them to always strive for best. Now, some people will say to me, but Paula, isn't that pressure? I know what my kids are made of and I know what they're capable of. And I celebrate those accomplishments. But even if they got a B, I'm gonna celebrate that too because it's still good, right? Yeah. We're gonna talk about where you fell short. What could we have done differently? But they're not gonna be in trouble for anything like that. I want them to always strive for better. So to answer your question, so that's really how I started doing shadow work. Once I first saw the shadows in me. And so now it is a constant pattern. Someone said to me the other day that they're on the other side of shadow work. So I wouldn't be their ideal client. Okay, great. But I don't think there's ever a other side of shadows because we're always evolving and there's always going to be another trigger. Something else. Now, what I have, maybe she means it like this. I automatically identify my shadows now. I see them as soon as they hit. And Lord, y'all pray for my husband because, honey, he has to deal with the wreck of that. And I'm like, oh, that was just a shadow. Something just triggered. Let me go chase this. Let me go find out where this comes from. And when you do the work, every time God will show you the seed of that shadow. Now, this is what I say, people, and this is what I'm working on in the next part of my work, is that people will often say we have to get to the root of the thing. No, we got to get to the seed. Because if you just get the root and that seed is still there, guess what? It's going to come back. So we're going to first get that seed, chase it. Then we're going to start cutting it off, cut the roots off. Because when you don't, because the base side shadows, shame, hurt, insecurity, fear, trauma. But out of those sheets, branches, roots grow. Out of those roots, branches grow. Out of those branches, leaves grow. And before you know it, you got all of these shadows that's hanging over you because we've learned how not to process it. I was saying to my daughter, sometimes when I recognize a thing, I'll say, girl, I'm 60 years old. You know, sometimes it's conditioned. I'm conditioned to believe that. My daughter says, no, Mom, it's not conditioned. She says, it's ingrained. She says, because if something is conditioned, you can change the condition of it. She says, but when something is ingrained, I said, girl, something is ingrained, it's going to take some work to get it out. You just can't gloss over that with some polish, right? You can change the condition of something by polishing it or cleaning it up, but you cannot change something that's ingrained. If someone takes and key your car, you can't just paint over it because you'll still see the indenture. You have to sand that sucker. You have to buff that sucker. You have to do all of those things. Likewise with our lives, we have to buff it out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I'm very curious about your mom's upbringing. Like, where's she from and how was she brought up to, to it that led to her parenting the way she did?
So my mom is the middle child. She grew up in the country. And my mom's, when I hear her story, she felt like, so she had her oldest daughter, her dad died. My mom's dad died when my mom was 5 months old. So she never knew her real father. And then she has her younger brother and my stepfather, my step granddaddy, her stepfather. And of course, and it's so funny because me and my mom think a lot in this. She had her baby brother, who was the baby, and he was the only boy. Then she had the firstborn, the sister. So she felt like she didn't have a space in her life, in her parents' house. And so my mom's car broke down, and I got an extra car. I said, "Mom, you want to keep my car?" Nope, I don't bother nobody. And and that's just who she is. She won't take anything. So she did not grow up in an environment where she can talk freely. Even today, because we talk very freely. My kids can talk to me about anything. Just like I think your previous client says. As a matter of fact, me and my late husband, we came up with a thing. We call it the green room. And the only reason we call it the green room because the room is green. And we said, when you go into the green room, this is your place of safety. This is your place where you can talk about anything you want to talk about. Most people say, I'm not my child's friend. I am. I didn't want to just be their mother. I wanted to also be their friend. And I would say, because it's all about how you decide to define friend. The definition of a friend for me is somebody that I can trust with my whole heart, my deepest, darkest secret. I can go to them for anything, and I know they're going to always have my back. I did not want another snot-nosed kid being that for my children. I wanted to be that for them. We wanted to be that for them. Because again, we couldn't have it. We didn't have those conversations where we can freely talk about anything, but we wanted to create it. So whenever we said, whatever you do, whatever you need to confess, whatever you need to talk about, we're going to talk about it in the green room, right? Now, if we get into the other side of the house and we find some stuff out, you're going to be in trouble. So my kids often, girl, they got so good, Alicia, they start bringing their friends up. Their friends start coming over and tell us, Miss Paula, Mr. Robert, can we have a green room conversation? And so that was a place for safety so that they can talk about anything. Even to the day, my kids talk to me about anything. My late husband, even my current husband, be like, okay, they just said that, huh? Okay. Yeah. And we're okay with that.
Yes, I love it. So your granddaughter, is that your daughter's kid or your son's kid?
My son's kid. Yep. Yep, man. And
And
they're
you only have one grandchild?
1.5. We got one bacon. He'll be here in August. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And, I know that you have a strong relationship with your granddaughter. How do you grandparent her in relation to how you parented your kids?
It's still a little bit different because my kids may have gotten, I think they may have gotten at least 5 spankings in their lives. But I look at it totally different. I believe I talk to her just like I talk to my kids. That this is a place of safety, that she can talk to me about anything. Now I do need to be better because I am that grandmother that spoils her. I am. And me and her had a conversation last week that grandmama said, we're gonna have to stop spoiling you so much because she's starting to be a little ornery. She's doing stuff that we need for her to back up on. But for example, can I bring her up and answer this question?
Mm-hmm.
Emily, come here for a second. Come here. Can you tell Miss Kalisha what happens with her? What happens with choices? Huh? You got to say it so she can hear it. With choices and what?
Bad choices.
Bad choices or choices and what? What's the word we use? Consequences. So for every choice, we're teaching her right now, for every choice, there's a consequence. So the other day she was playing with my iPad. And so she got mad at me and because I told her it was time to put it down. So she slung the iPad across the floor. And I did this illustration for her. I said, this is life. Life is going to always give you 2 decisions that you have to make. Good choices or bad choices, right, Annalie? You want to help me teach this? Good choices or bad choices? When you make good choices, what happens?
Bad choices.
When you make good choices, what you get?
Bad choices.
No. When you make good choices, what you get?
Good choices.
Good consequences. Remember? She's being silly. And so I taught her this lesson because I wanted to tell her. Then I had to go on to tell her, I said, when you go down the road, you're going to make good choices and bad choices. For every good choice, there are going to be good consequences. For every bad choice, there are going to be bad consequences. She's like, okay. Then she said, so I can't have the iPad back? I said, well, did you make a good choice by throwing it or a bad choice? She said it was a bad choice. I said, so great. I said, so now when we make bad choices, there are consequences. I said, so the consequences of throwing my phone is you can't play with it right now. She goes, okay. I says, now, God gives us what we call grace. Grace means when I learn from my bad choice, then I can make better choices. God gives us grace. So that means we get another chance. I said, so now, since you recognize that was a bad choice, you can't play with it right now. I said, we're just going to let you be on timeout from it. Okay. She says, okay. I said, so how long do you think we need to be on punishment? I said 15 minutes. She says no, 40. I said, okay, that works for me. So I put it in this because her dad used to, his punishments for himself used to be always harsher than what we were given. She went onto my phone, she set the timer for 40 minutes and put herself on the punishment.
I love it.
And look, by the time the 40 minutes was over, she was asleep. So she never got it back that same day. But if the lesson was in there, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah.
And we have to learn that choices have consequences. That's just a life lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And now she carries that into school, carries it into her jobs in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to have that domino effect. But now she can make that connection, and so when she has to make the decision on her own, now she has a starting point.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, there's two decisions, two outcomes,
Right.
and let me make sure that I'm seeing this opportunity clearly, so that I can
Absolutely.
make the best decision. So
And
I
I
love
did the same thing with my kids, and I told them, your choice, your consequences, not mine. Okay. And so even so, she's 4, but they so smart. I know she gets it. But we're going to keep reinforcing it too.
The key is being able to teach kids in a way that they make the best decisions, even when you're not there.
Even when you're not there, that is the
So
key.
you're just giving her a tool to be able to do that, so that she can, when nobody's there, she can still think about good choice, good consequence, bad choice, bad consequence.
Absolutely.
Very easy.
And she's so funny because she told me her mom didn't make a good choice. She got bad consequences. That's like, okay, but she's paying attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And kids will tell it. I told my brother when his kids were little, I said, I used to teach kindergarten. So I'm like, these kindergartners tell me everything that's going on in the house. Just so you know, like I had a kid who was like, my dad got another wife and another wife and another wife. I was like, mom came to parent conference and she was like, yeah, I really want to go back to college, but I got these kids and I got a wild husband. I almost said, I know. Like, your kid told me. But it's so good that kids process in that way, and their brains are little sponges, and they are recording everything that happens. And I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, even when kids don't have the language to repeat what it is, it's still being stored in their subconscious mind. Their brains are still recording all of the information. So when you have these conversations, eventually it's going to come back up.
Absolutely.
And at 4, she definitely understands enough good consequence, good action, good consequences, and she can make those choices.
She can make those choices, planting that seed now. You said to me, are you at the hospital now?
Yeah.
Wow. I love that. I love that again, because you're living what you're teaching to, right? I was telling my community this morning. Yesterday, for whatever reason, I'm having some challenges with my left shoulder. So it completely locked up on me. It was frozen shoulder, and it was the worst pain ever. Could not move. And I'm left-handed. So it was double the issues. And so as I was going through that, I still got up and did my morning call with them. Right. And so they were like, why don't you just go lay down? Because life will always give you a reason to cancel what your plan is. So I just wanted to applaud you that even though your daughter is there in labor, you still went on, because you've been talking about having a passion for doing this for some time now, and that you did not let your little grandbaby decide that he gonna come on in today.
And we've been here since the 17th. So we came on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. and this baby has not come out yet. And this morning, my daughter, we were on the fence about, what we're going to do with today, because she wants her boyfriend to be able to be here. And I'm like, I get that. I said, but this baby is not coming out before this podcast is over. Right. So I'll go switch with him, and I'll keep the kids after the podcast, because and she sleep right now.
Yeah.
The baby is not even thinking about coming.
Yeah. Is she having a boy or girl?
A boy.
Okay.
She has 3 boys now and 1 girl. So this will be the 4th boy.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, congratulations, boys. Building that basketball team, huh?
5 already. She already got the starting lineup.
Right. Right.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Making the transition from employee to entrepreneur, and then to coach people, and really to be able to pour into people's lives. Like, how did you make that transition?
And I'm still making that transition, to be quite honest with you. I quit CDC in 2017, but when COVID happened, they historically I would be the one who would do all the recruiting effort when we ever had whenever the agency had a pandemic. I was the staffing lead, and so they asked me to come back to help. And because I quit, I left my retirement and all those things on the table, so I went back and got them. But it was a totally different. It's a different mindset because I'm getting a paycheck every other Friday, whether I go to work or not, right? But an entrepreneur, ain't no money sitting there in no bank account waiting to write you no check. You got to go out there and you got to hustle. You got to get it. So I told my husband, I said, "Oh, this whole 1099 life is something new." I told him, I don't understand this world. But that's all my husband has ever done. He's only done. He's always been self-employed, and so it's been a shift. And so, in total transparency, until we started getting to know each other in this community that we're in, I played with it, right? I got on a very uncomfortable comfort zone, right? Meaning, I was hiding behind the success of my husband. So I kind of got like lackadaisia, but I'm also a female who likes to have her own and want to help, don't want to. I had we talked about shadows. Another shadow that I got from a childhood is my parents were outside having some trees cut down. And my mama is very open and she loves to talk. And she was outside talking to the guys who were cutting down the trees. And my daddy told her to get her ASS in the house. He snapped at her. And my mom turned around and went in the house. And I was about 12 then, Kalisha. I said, "Mama, you gonna let him talk to you like that? Tell him to get his ASAs in the house." And I said what he said. I said exactly what he said. I said, "Tell him to get his ASA," because I did not like it. I did not like for people to be disrespected like that. And I came in the house behind her and I said, "Mom, why you let him talk to you like that? You deserve respect." And I'm just, because I was mad. I didn't like it. And she said to me, she says, "Paula, your dad will take good care of me." She said, "So I don't even pay it no attention." And she started talking about all the things. She ain't got to pay no rent. She ain't got to do this, that, and the third. Whenever she needs some money, he just write her a check. And my 12, 13-year-old self said, "And I'll never have a man take care of me."
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't want that. That's not a part of me. I don't need nobody. I can take care of myself. What I wanted was respect, right?
Yeah.
And so when I made that transition, having a husband who can take care of me, it's uncomfortable for me because of that. But I'm embracing that shadow. And so now that I'm back in the community, I'm having fun. I'm learning how to put systems in place. I'm learning how to be a product. And when I tell you my coaching program has went to a whole nother level since I've been in this program, I've gotten system in place. It's making sense. It's structure in it. I'm not just talking from my head anymore. I can see the growth. And like I told you, I'm building this whole tree thing to talk about what comes out of all of those shadows. And so that's going to be what I'm going to roll out to my community. But yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. But it's a challenge. Yeah.
It's so good that you can that you had the freedom to be able to say, "I'm gonna walk away from my job," but then also that you could still make that choice to go back when it was most convenient for you, and you're like, "I'm not gonna leave all the benefits on the table."
Right.
And you can, but you have the time to do it.
Yeah.
And your children are grown.
Yeah.
It will be very different if you had a house full of kids at home and you were returning to work. It would be a little more difficult to manage all of that.
Right.
But it is a good time
Right.
in your life that you can.
One of the things I do want to say while I'm on here is that this shadow work is the bomb.com. It is just so liberating. The Bible says that whom the Son of Man set free is free indeed. Now, what I have been doing is playing in the comfort zone, playing with people that God has not called me to, but because it was comfortable there. And literally, I had a dream, and God says, that's not your audience. And, in our community, they make us say the XYZ statement. Well, who do you serve? Who do you serve? And that question keeps coming up. And so a lot of times, even when I'm in the community, I can, I told you, God shows me what's behind the mask, what's behind the face. And a lot of times I see a lot of high performance, but that's how I got it. Looking at that community, I see a lot of high performing women in our community, but I also see shadows, right? And so that's when I got the identity of who they were. At first, I just said 40-year-olds, 30, 40-year-olds. No, God says, no, that's not your. It's women who got their shift together on the outside, but on the inside, she's tired. On the inside, she's having to carry all the weight. On the inside, she ready to lay this stuff down, right?
Yeah.
But she don't know how, because if I don't do it, then who gonna do it?
Yeah.
And in that case, how do we show up for our children the way God intends us to? How do we show up for our significant others? Even with me making that pledge that I don't need nobody to care for me, I never even took into consideration what that made my husband feel, right? Somebody who won't take care of you. Right before this podcast, I made the mistake of saying, oh, I got a taste for some Oreo cookies. Next thing I know, he coming in the house with a big bag of Oreo cookies. Dude, I was just playing. I don't need those cookies.
You didn't make a mistake.
Reason I say that is I don't need those cookies, huh?
That's love, though.
Yeah, he just went and got them. And so
Yeah.
now I got a bag of Oreo cookies. Thank God the great grandbaby is here so she can help me eat them. But so just learning how to appreciate that, though. But it takes shadow, because that little girl who saw her dad disrespect her mom has to make way for her husband who's not disrespecting her. So
Yeah.
he can't wear the brunt of what her dad did. And even with my dad, giving him grace, he didn't mean anything by it. I would say to my dad, you don't have to yell. He's like, well, I'm not yelling. In his mind, he wasn't, right? So learning to give people grace and meeting where they are. And when you start doing the shadow work, one of the greatest book that I ever read, it's the battle between me, myself, and I. Just kidding. But
I
also,
love that book.
thank you. The Four Agreements.
Mhm.
You read that one too. Don't take anything personal. This stuff is not personal. We are all people. We're all dealing with some stuff. We all have shadows and stuff that we've suppressed and stuff that has been leading our lives that we don't even understand. As a matter of fact, Alicia, I'm going to send you a link to my assessment, because I want you to take it to see which shadow is showing up in your life. It's the dominant shadows. And then what we're doing in our community, we're learning how to face, chase, and embrace them. And when I tell you, it's just so much fun when a woman finds like, that's the seed of that thing. Because so now you recognize it. Now you can give yourself grace. Now you don't have to beat yourself up. And I tell people the shadows are not bad. They are a natural part. As a matter of fact, whenever God revealed to me that anger was one of my prominent shadows, you look at Coach PBJ, you don't think she can get angry. Coach PBJ can go from 0 to 100. And the head go to rolling and the words start to coming. I don't like that version of her, though. And so when I began to pray, God, how do I deal with that? How do I deal with this anger? I know the seed of it. I know where it started, but how do I deal with that? Well, I'm at my son's house, and my grandbaby, she was 2, and she had her first falling out. And she rolls over in the floor, and she just crying because she wanted something, and he told her no. And he stood up, Khalees, and he started walking over to my grandbaby. And I don't created a whole narrative in my head. I was over there. I was like, okay, Lord. So he finna go over here and he finna spank her. And then I'm gonna get mad and I'm gonna hit him. And then he gonna put me out his house. And then I'm gonna have to take him to grandparent court so I can see her again. All these thoughts going through my head, right? And none of that stuff happened. None of it happened. What he did instead was kneel down. He got eye to eye with her. And he said to her, Annalie, breathe. My grandbaby took 3 long breaths. And then she got up as if nothing ever happened.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh my God. And so now when I feel myself getting angry, guess what I do?
Breathe.
Just breathe. My grandbaby, when she see me getting angry, you know what she do? Sweet pea, let's breathe. Right? So and a lot of things that we're dealing with, you just got to breathe through it. Sit with it, breathe through it. And it's okay. Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, how did you meet your husband? And how was that? Like, there seems like it would have to be some work to do when you lost the love of your life.
Yes.
And then to meet somebody else. Tell me about that process.
So that was really funny because I wrote a book about it too. I called my husband tells people that our relationship started on 4 ships. The first ship being mentorship. So after my husband passed away, he had been gone for 8 years. My daughter was away at college. My son was away at college. I'm in this house And that's when I started to feel the grief because this empty nester wasn't supposed to be solo. And so that's when I started having a lot of anger behind the loss. And so I started becoming a person that I really did not like. I did not know who I was anymore. And the Bible says, I don't know if the Bible says, and I gotta remember, idle mind is a devil workshop. It doesn't say that, but it alludes to that. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so my mind just started having all of these crazy thoughts. And I began my whole foundation was shaking. And I just remember going to my pastor and said, look, I need for you to find me something to put my energy into. I need to find something to do because if not, I'm going to lose my mind. That's what I said to him. He says, well, okay, we're trying to find a discipleship ministry at the church. He said, so go see if you can go to some other church and see what they're doing in the ways of discipleship and see if we can bring some of those ideas to the church. And I went to Hopewell and a couple other churches, but Hopewell had this thing called Master Life. It was a 24-week discipleship course. I studied it with them, brought it to the church, and Pastor Lee let me implement that ministry at our church. And so the first cohort, we had to train facilitators because each class is only supposed to have 10 to 12 people per class. And so I trained the facilitators. We rolled out the registration, and our limit was 150 people. Tony was 151. After we closed registration, I get a phone call the next day, and he says, hey, Elder Birch, my name is Tony Jackson. He said, I was out of town yesterday, and I realized that y'all closed the registration for the Master Life. He says, but if there's any way I can take that class, he says, please, can I take this class? And I said, dude, how am I gonna tell a man who want to be discipled? No. I said, look, all the classes are full. I said, but I will take you in my class. I didn't know him. I did not know him at this time. I said, I will take you in my class. I said, but if you can take Wednesday, because my class is on Wednesday. He said, I'll be there. I said, okay, great. Go to the library, go to the bookstore, get your books. I'll see you on Wednesday. That's how we met in class. Mind you, Tony at that time was going through a divorce. I was still dealing with widowhood. So at night, I couldn't sleep. At night, he couldn't sleep. So what I would be doing is sending text messages and encouragement to all of the people in my class. Tony would be responding back. And I'm like, why are you not asleep? He's like, well, why are you not asleep? And so, of course, we were going through these ballads together. One of the things, book 4 of this discipleship course required that the group do activities together. So our group was so close. And we used to go to the movies, go out to dinner. We did a whole lot of stuff. Well, after we graduated, gradually, the group started falling out. People started going to their own worlds. And initially, it was me, Tony, and this guy named Drew. It was just 3 of us left. Drew ended up getting a girlfriend. So then it was just me and Tony left. And we started hanging out all the time. And people started putting us together as a couple. I didn't see it at the time. But I was telling people, when did we start dating? Because I don't even remember started dating. We just kind of grew together on that. And so when he tells people, we started as mentorship to friendship to relationship to partnership. And now we're in partnership.
I love that.
Yeah, I met both my husbands in church. Huh?
How long have you been married? This time?
We got married in 2014. Yeah. October 11, 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You said you met your first husband in church?
Yeah. Yeah, met him in church too. Yeah. We were young. We were very, very young. Yeah. We got married at 20.
And then he passed away at 39.
39. Yeah.
I remember that because my mom passed away at 39. So I'm like, I won't forget that. And I was 15, just like your daughter was 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you give me hope because, especially being grown on the older side, and to still be able to find love, because I know you hear us talk about how the dating pool got pee in it, right? Like, because it is really hard. But I am curious about how your children accepted you remarrying.
Hunter. So whenever I started dating, because you're right, that dating pool is crazy. And that's when I went to my pastor, like, this ain't gonna work for me because these people crazy. And I had resolved that I was gonna be single for the rest of my life. So I get it. I really do get it. But anytime I went out on a date, um, my daughter was a beast. She liked nobody. And Tony was the only person that they let come around me and they liked him. And but we was friends for so long. It wasn't a relationship. He wasn't trying to date me. So I think and they just accepted him.
Yeah.
They would invite him to different stuff and they just and even when Tony decided that he wanted to get married, he went and had a conversation with my son. My daughter just took to him right away. And she was a beast with everybody else. Oh my God, she was so disrespectful. I'm like, girl, she didn't like anybody else. But Tony came, she just loved Tony. And so he had a conversation with Trey. I think my son, it was a little bit more harder for him than it was for my daughter because that loyalty for his dad.
Mhm.
But he said, but they had a conversation and they're cool. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He
I
takes
don't think I finished the thought, but it inspires me to know that you were able to find love again, find two people that you could love like this, you
absolutely
know, and after your husband passing away to be able to find somebody else. Because you said it in the book, I was expecting to be single for life,
right.
but you found somebody who not only you love like that, but who loves you enough to go get you the Oreo cookies because he heard you say, I got a taste for 'em."
Listen, my husband is more acquainted with the special dates of my late husband than I am sometimes. Something can be, my energy changes around certain times, like his birthday, his death date, our anniversary date, whatever. 20 years later, and my body, my mind, my spirit still responds to that way. And I don't know. Sometimes I don't even recognize it. Well, not this, I think I'm getting better, but I don't know because he hadn't told me. But 20 years later, I still call him Robert and his name Tony. And you know what's even more funny? My mama and sister do it too. So there's a kindred spirit. And then we'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. He says, no. He says, I really wished I would have had a chance to meet Mr. Robert. He says, because everybody talks so highly of him. He says, so it blesses me that I remind you guys of him.
That's so good.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's huge. Because when I was trying to date, girl, people was jealous of a dead man. I would get cussed out if I said anything about my late husband. But he gives me that space to grieve even now. And he knows that the first few years I didn't grieve. So he gives me that space. And now he understands it even more because we lost my father-in-law, his father, 2 years ago. And like this year when his birthday came, as a matter of fact, this month, he had a hard time this year. So he was like, man, I understand. And now he's grieving his father. He says, man, I just feel so bad for you because I know how that feel now. But he's always giving me that space to feel that grief and not. And I think that's another place where shadows dwell in grief because we don't in the United States we don't grieve. We don't get a chance. Your loved one died at 9 o'clock. By 9:30, we need to know where you want to take this body. It's
Mhm.
like, can I even process this?
And your
So
job, you get one day off, and if it was a close relative, you might get 3 days off. And I'm like, if it's your mama, you might get 3 days off. I'm just like, this is crazy.
you know
You
what? When my husband died, see, I'm different. I'm made of a different cause. I always choose me. And when my husband died, like I said, my grief was more so with my children. He died right before they got out of school that year. His funeral was the week of the last day of school, right? And so I didn't know what to do with them for the summer. So I took off with them. I didn't go back to work. My husband died in May. I didn't go back to work in October. I got them through the summer, then I needed to deal with myself too. Then when I went back to work, my supervisor told me that he didn't know he had a background in psychology, and he says 20 years of marriage and the sudden death like that. He says, I don't think that that's going to be a good match for my office. And he tried to demote me. And I said, you know what, Lord? I came back too soon and I left and took another 2 weeks off. And before I came back, when I left the office that day, a job that I had applied for in April, they had selected me for the job and was waiting on me to come back. And the manager called me on my way home. I literally prayed and says, God, I don't know what you're gonna do, but you got to fix this. And after on the amen, the phone rang, and it was this guy named Kim Williams, and he told me he had been holding that job for me since April. He just wanted to know when I was going to come back. Isn't that crazy? That's God. Yeah. So yeah. But I want you to it has been a pleasure being here. I know
Yeah.
you got your daughter.
Yes.
Um,
How do people get a hold of your assessment
I will
and
I
your
can send it
community? If they want to be a part of your community, any of that, how do people connect with you?
for my community. They can go onto my website, coachpbjspeaks.com. That is Coach P as in PBJ, like peanut butter and jelly, speaks. CoachPBJspeaks.com, and go on the service page, and you'll see a link to join the community there. You'll also see the link to the free assessment on my website too. Take the assessment. You'll get the results. It'll send the results to you, and then you can book a call with me so that a clarity call, so I can explain to you what the results mean and where we go to that from there. And then if they want to work with me to help chase, face, and embrace those shadows, I am more than willing and able to do so. It has been an amazing, amazing process. It's really amazing. Two of my coaching clients are also in therapy, and both of them told me this week, one last week, that when they go to the the therapist is saying, "Well, why are you here?" Because when they give the answer, they're answering what they're learning from the shadow work. And the therapist is now saying, "Oh, wow. So why are you here?" So that really just blessed my heart to know that I'm helping even on that level, because it is psychological work, but it's liberating to just, and like I said, when my father passed away in 2013. And the last thing he said to me, Kalisha, is, "Paula, no matter what you do, always seek for truth." So this shadow works helped me do that, and not to be ashamed. And when I'm talking to women, I'm not looking for a made up sad story, right? I'm looking for the truth of that story. And a lot of times when we go through things, especially when we go as a child, you may have just bumped your toe, but we're going to give a whole different narrative to it, right? And so we have to also work through the fluff. Is that the absolute truth? Is that really what happened? Sometimes the absolute truth is worse than what we're sharing because we're still protecting. So it's a great thing to just get to those questions and ask those. I ask the Donnie Wiggin type questions, the questions like, "I need an answer." That's a shallow answer. No, that's not the truth. Let's dig a little bit deeper. And they're doing it. They're doing the work, and they're seeing the harvest. They're seeing the harvest, and I'm excited about that.
That's so good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I love everything that you do. Everything, all the energy you've ever given off has been exactly this right here. It's
Amen.
that you care about people, and it's that you are real and open and honest about you. And
Yes.
that builds so much trust with people. For sure it does with me, but
Mm,
that's somebody that you can trust to coach you
yeah.
on your life choices. It's
Yeah.
somebody who's being real about the good and the bad about their own,
Yeah.
because when people come off like I'm perfect, then it doesn't make people open up to say this is what I'm struggling with.
Mm,
And that's why I even created the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. I'm like, not because I was a perfect parent, but
mm-hmm.
because people can learn from the mistakes that I've made.
Amen.
And I've learned a lot. I've done some things better. I'm doing things better with my grandkids. But for those people that don't want somebody who's been perfect their whole life and never had to recover from something,
Mhm.
then it's hard for you to for you to trust that they can help you as
Yeah,
you're battling whatever you're battling. And so
absolutely.
when you first mentioned about the shadows, I was like, okay, I was like, sounds like baggage to me, like what we refer to as baggage
Right,
in
right.
relationships, just in life. It's the
Yeah.
shadows that are following us
Mhm,
everywhere. If we don't deal with them, then
mhm,
we'll take them into adulthood. We'll pass them on to future
mhm.
generations. And
That's
so
good.
I'm
You
so
do.
glad that you're doing the work that you're doing, because it's not just helping you. You didn't keep it to yourself, but
Mm-mm.
you shared it with all of us.
I'm
And
also a minister, and I when I speak, I had to ask God, Lord, why I do that all the time. Whenever I'm ministering, I tell my story. I tell how the Bible helped me, right? And so I asked the Lord, why do I do that? Because somebody asked me, girl, every time you preach, I love it because you tell your stories and it's so relatable. And I was like, Lord, why do I do that? Because most people, when they're preaching, they just teaching the text. They're not telling you how that text, but I only preach what I've used, right? And so I asked God why I do that. And he brought, again, everything happens in our childhood. whenever I was in Sunday school, I remember asking my Sunday school teacher, well, why do I care what Moses did? What it got to do with me? So now I tell my stories so that you can know I just didn't go to school and learn something in the book. This is the school of hard knocks. This is what God is doing in my own life. And I see the fruit of what he's doing in my own life. And it's almost like having that chocolate cake and it's just so good. And you just want to share it because it is so good. And that's what this work is to me. It's like that chocolate cake or your favorite dessert. It is that I just got to get a piece of this. And I want to share that because when we look at the state of the world, it is really scary. So I want to impact as many lives as I can to help us be our true, authentic self and live the life that we desire and we deserve. And the only way we're going to do that is to get rid of that baggage or to embrace that baggage, to understand that baggage without judging it and feeling like something is wrong with you. Because it's not. Yeah.
It's what? Chase, face, and embrace, and then replace.
Erase, then replace.
Erase
So
and
once you erase it, you got to dig up that seed. So like for me with the anger situation, to erase it, I had to go have a conversation with that little girl to tell her, yes, you do have a reason to be angry. And anger is even a natural emotion. It's even in the Bible. Be angry and sin not. To tell her you had the right to feel what you felt, right? And then to replace it. So now what am I going to replace that anger with? I'm going to replace it with breathing exercises. I don't have to now respond to that. So now when I feel anger, rather than reacting to the anger, I'm going to take 3 long breaths. I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to pause. I'm not going to judge it. I am going to find out. I'm going to have to face, chase, and embrace it. Why do you feel this way anyway? What did they just trigger? It's just a deeper form, in my opinion, of emotional intelligence. Learning to know yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much and thank you for your flexibility today. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sharing your life and your grandbaby with us today.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. And enjoy the rest of your Juneteenth.
You said be sure to text me when the baby comes.
I will. I'm about to go swap with her boyfriend so I can take the kids. But I will let you know if it's at a decent hour. Hopefully he comes today. I'm like, from the moment she told me her due date was June 13th. June 15th. I told her we're gonna have that baby on Juneteenth. She was like, I don't want to have him late. You're gonna have that baby on Juneteenth.
So he's on his way after your podcast. By the time you come home, he's gonna be here.
Hopefully.
All right, you be safe.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you all for watching this special edition of the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast, Juneteenth edition. And may we all live free. Have a great day.